does not tolerate such actions and strongly condemns them. While it may not always be possible to prevent hate speech from occurring during public comments, the council will continue to take measures to make it more difficult to express such views. Are there any agenda additions or changes from anyone?
No.
Okay, moving on. Public to be heard. This is the portion of the meeting where members of the public can share comments, questions, concerns with the council for items that are and are not on the agenda this evening. Is there anybody in the room that wants to speak tonight? No? Is there anyone on Zoom that wants to? Oh, sorry. Oh, I apologize.
Just very briefly, do I need to approach?
Yeah, if you don't mind coming up and just saying your name for the person who does our minutes. Sorry about that.
No worries. I was thinking about it. I'm Helen Donahue. I'm on the board of Brownell, and I just wanted to speak in support of Wendy Hisco, who I was trying to remember. I think I've been on the board about 8 years. I came in on a partial term, and then I just re-upped last year for another 5. And I can't think of a meeting that I've been to where I wasn't just wildly impressed by Wendy and so appreciative of all she does. She is always prepared. Her reports are always very thorough. She keeps us informed. She doesn't belabor things. She's incredibly efficient, and she's just good at a lot of different things. So I just thought that was worth saying, that I've been on a lot of boards in a lot of different places, and I've rarely found someone who is just also very pleasant to deal with, who is as talented as she is. So I just wanted to say that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone on Zoom who wants to share any comments? I'm not seeing any, but I am seeing. There's no sound. Is there a sound setting that is not? Can folks in Zoom hear us now? Feel free someone to unmute and say yes or no, if you can hear us. If you can't, then you probably won't answer.
I can tell you, Wendy just asked me if the meeting has started. She said,
Yeah.
I heard recording in progress, and that's it.
Okay. Risa says they can't hear us.
Yeah, I think he's working on it. We're going to take a minute and get this fixed, and then we'll continue in a second. Can folks hear us now?
Okay, awesome.
Great. This is a public to be heard session of the meeting. Is there anyone on Zoom that has anything they'd like to share with the council during public to be heard? I'm not seeing any hands raised. Karen? Karen, go ahead and unmute, share your last name, and hi.
Hi. I put my last name in the chat because it's a little bit long.
Sure.
I just wanted to participate in, as a library trustee and member of the community, thank a recent, I wanted to thank, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Wanted to thank Marcus for coming to a library event, a viewing of the public. We had a really good conversation, and I really appreciated his coming and participating. And I wanted to thank the counselor who came to our recent trustee meeting and engaged and participated in a really positive way with the trustees. And I wanted to thank the council for all of the work that you guys have been doing around this budget cycle. I've learned a lot by participating more than I ever have before. And I wanted to publicly thank the staff and members that work in our Brownell Library every day for coming in and dealing with the public and members of our community and having a smile on their face and being helpful and thoughtful and kind. And I just wanted to publicly support them and say thank you.
That's great. Thanks for doing that.
Thank
And
you.
for because the chat doesn't carry over, can you say your last name for a minute take?
Sure, it's Hergesheimer.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
H-E-S-H-E-I-M-E-R. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on Zoom that wants to share any comments? I'm not seeing any hands raised. We'll give it another second. Doesn't look like it. So we will move on to business item 5A, library conversation with Wendy Hisco, who is on Zoom with us. Thanks for coming.
Yes, thanks for having the hybrid option. Um, so I'm not sure, I did send in a form with some in general information. If you have questions, I also wanted to thank Elaine for coming to our trustee meeting. Last week, it was really great to have a city council presence in person and engaging with our board. And yeah, just appreciated Karen's comments as well. Things at Brownell are continue. We're busy. We have a lot of new folks and old folks that continue to use the library. We're working with Harlan on hopefully a new roof this year, and I've applied for a large grant to hopefully get that and make our front entrance ADA accessible, which it is not currently. And that has come up in the conversations around the roof as we discuss the black ice and that really looking at our building and how we can only get people who have physical disabilities safely in through our back door, which means they need transportation. So something, if we don't get the grant, I would love to continue that conversation in the future of how we can address the steep slope in front of Brownell so we can get people coming from the sidewalk and bus stop.
Yep, for sure. I think I'm certainly not going to make you read your memo. I think we all read it.
Mhm.
Very excited about that opportunity for the grant. Thank you for applying for that and doing all that work. I can't recall when we might hear about that. I remember
It's a
it being rather rapid, but
Yeah, they're expecting to announce the recipients in, I think, 2 months with the money to arrive this summer. It's a competitive grant, and there are other libraries in Chittenden County that have applied for it, but we're in good standing because of how much work has been already done for the roof construction and redesigning if we move the door away from the ice area that gathers now. And yeah, we'll find out. And um, they're trying to award at least one grant per county. We don't qualify as far as the community. We don't get points for the Vermont Community Index, where there's 10 different things that they rate communities on it. And Essex Junction is not in a low income area, so we don't get points for that on this application, but we do get other things like being near a city or downtown location and having public bus transportation, and that it includes ADA accessibility. And it's really for technology access and getting people in the building to be able to access technology for a variety of things, which we see all the time. And we also included a pod indoors, so a work pod that would allow people to have private use of a space where they can have, if they wanted to have telehealth or any sort of meeting where privacy is essential, that would be part of this grant as well, and something we do not offer really anywhere, unless maybe in tech services, because they're down in the basement in the corner. It's the quietest area in the library, but we do have our challenges, and the work pod would be fantastic as far as being able to have it mobile in the building. So if we need to rearrange things, we could do that without a major construction issue.
gotcha. Does anyone have questions for Wendy? Comments on what she shared with us? Anything else?
A couple things.
Sure.
Wendy, I just want to acknowledge first in reading your memo. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. And just like memos that you've presented in the past that we've read, again, acknowledging a significant number of challenges that are happening at Brownell. I just want to acknowledge that I've heard it and I continue to hear about it. And I'm looking forward to hearing from you, the staff, the trustees, on some possible solutions, ways that we can continue to work together to try to help these situations that are happening at the library. The other thing that I want to acknowledge too, and from what I hear from the community who have reached out to me about the library specifically, again, I just want to acknowledge overwhelming support from the community for the library. While all of that has come in as well. A majority of the commentary that I hear about giving feedback toward the library is, again, the library, people wanting the library to reassess Saturdays during the summer. Because what I hear most of from all the commentary is, we love the library, protect the books, but we want our Saturdays in the summer. So I just want to make sure that I've said that for all the people who have reached out to me specifically on, again, supporting the library. So anyway, that was it.
We do have constraints right now, including budgetary constraints about Saturdays. So that's something to consider moving forward and how that would work for sure. Contractual constraints and budgetary constraints. But I do appreciate you sharing both all of the feedback. And I also encourage our library board meetings are open to the public, and our board is an engaging one, and the library is open to the public for anybody. We are a very collaborative department, and look forward to being able to collaborate with our leadership more. I would like to, there's a table that keeps being mentioned, everybody coming to, and being able to move forward from a table towards solutions would be really great.
Can you describe, like, for folks that aren't aware, all the different ways people, I mean, briefly, but because there are a lot of them, and you're very knowledgeable about it, but all the different ways people can access materials and resources at the library now, and some of the ones that have been added in the last few years, sort of 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, so we have our standard print collection, which libraries are most famous for, that everybody assumes that's what libraries are all about. But we also have a audiovisual, extensive DVD collection, which some people, it's very heavily used. Not everybody has streaming, and there's also a lot of titles that are not available for streaming. We have a lot of digital materials, digital audiobooks, digital ebooks for downloading, digital magazines that are available. So these are all 24/7. Anything digital is available 24/7, which is really what is great about. They're expensive, but having that access to library materials whenever you feel like it without having to go to the library is something that working people in particular really appreciate. We have, I think, 15 or 10 public computers and standalone stations, as well as Chromebooks for people to borrow. We have a newspaper database, which isn't as fancy as, like, say, we looked at New York Times Online, and it was extremely expensive and limited and how much people could use it. So database would, there's a lot of local great newspapers, including the Essex Reporter, that are in that database. We have other databases for research. We also have online streaming, which has a lot of content that we can't carry at Brownell. There's a lot of people who enjoy PBS and BBC shows, and those are all things that are involved in this streaming, as well as a lot of independent films and other TV shows and more kids materials. The Overdrive magazines are also in many languages, which is something that we really are proud of to offer. It's really hard to cultivate a print collection for like there's 36 languages in the Essex Westford School District, and it would be really hard to develop collections without any large sections of the community that we could develop. Like we're not a large enough city for different sort of diverse neighborhoods. But we do try to include more digital resources, but those also have their own drawbacks if people don't have the technology. We have a robust kids programming that is happening many days of the week, including we're trying to include many Saturdays, which are very, very popular, especially in the winter months when people are looking for things for their kids to do. I'm trying to think. There's so many things that we have. Oh, the Library of Things. So we have the Library of Things, which is a growing collection of. It started really with tools. I think years ago we got garden tools for the community for people who don't want to have tools but wanted to use the community gardens, and it's really grown into a lot of tools, things to experiment with, things that you may not want in your house, like noise making instruments that maybe you don't want all the time, or maybe you want to give them a try. We have like our karaoke machine is very popular. We have laminating machines, the VHS to digital transcribe technology. So we have a lot of different things that are available through you can look at our catalog, and then we have a big shelf when you enter the library, and a growing number of games, which has been extremely popular with people because they can rotate through. And we also have a puzzle swap, which has been, now we're collecting data on that, and that is very, very popular for both people purging their puzzles as well as picking up puzzles. And we have an ongoing puzzle in our main reading room at all times now, which has become a great place for people to just spend some time, whether it's on a lunch break or if that's part of their weekly regimen, daily regimens. And we have a lot of friendly staff that are willing to connect people with information, good and quality information. Or we have a lot of people that come just to say hello and have an interaction, and they range in age. I mean, kids are practicing their communication skills at the youth desk all the time, and everywhere up through people who can get themselves to the library are coming to just have people interactions without it costing them money.
Great. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other board members?
One follow-up question.
Sure.
How does the library approach being available and accessible to new Americans who have entered our community? Because language being a barrier, obviously, I wonder how the library faces that particular challenge.
We've had some challenges more recently with people needing resources. Generally, with our computers, it's easier. That's the highest, I think, interest. We've needed to connect with 211 has translators that are available, and that has been a huge resource for us when we don't know like the language somebody's speaking. And yeah, so 211 has been a good place to connect people with somebody that can speak their native language. And then otherwise, the youth generally are because they're in the school system, their English, they pick it up very quickly and are able to interact with staff. And otherwise, there's a lot of I think just trying to point to resources and try to figure things out. I think most people that do come in and are looking to interact with staff have some grasp, at least of a few words, to be able to explain what they're looking for. And we do our best to provide that. And I know there's a possibility that we could also use translation services like Google Translate or something like that if we need it. We haven't had a huge amount of need at this point outside of calling 211 to connect people to social services.
And new Americans coming into this community might see the accessibility to the library. And I'm not saying this as a criticism about the library. I think about libraries in general and just their accessibility to the language, whether or not you might think that they potentially see a barrier that may or may not exist.
I would say it's a reasonable assumption. Our youth staff in particular do a lot of outreach to schools to get involved in different diverse activities that we can. There will be library trustees and staff at a multicultural fair coming up. I think our greater challenge is educating people that the libraries exist. It's not something that is guaranteed from where they're coming from, or they might not have ever had the opportunity. So we do reach out to the refugee resettlement, and then AALV, which is I forget the it's another group that's I think, sort of taken up after the refugee resettlement does the work that they are contracted to do. So we try to outreach as much as possible to members of the community that may not traditionally use the library. And we've had great success with some families that have taken that big step to come into the library and really do feel like they're part of the community once they do that. But I think our greater challenge right now is getting them in the door and connecting with them. I think a lot of people who are new Americans are dealing with a lot of difficulties. And so I think computers are the one thing that we really do connect people with. I think a lot of working people have, and most refugees are working, don't have a lot of free time and are struggling. Like they're not looking for sort of what some of the library community is looking for as far as like enjoyable reading and our DVDs do have translation in them, but it seems more like they're looking for real tools to move like their whether it's a visa application, job applications, that sort of thing, and we can certainly connect people to those. And I think in general the community has just talking to different groups that it's a challenge to get people who are really just settling into a community to engage with the community, and we do that as much as possible. And our trustees will connect several of our trustees are mentors in the with new Americans, so we do have some good contacts amongst our trustees, and our staff is some of them have traveled widely, speak other languages, and are very understanding of cultural differences. So we have that on board to help navigate a lot of different situations.
Thanks.
Can I just add?
Just 1 second, sorry.
Sure.
Is there anything else from, sorry, Jane, but is there anything else from counselors? No? Okay. See anything from Amber? So at this point, are there any questions from the public? And we'll start in the room, and I know there is one.
I do have one thing that came up last
Yes.
that I just wanted to mention, and I did mention it to Regina. The train station is really, I think, it brings a different element to Essex Junction. And speaking to our outreach workers, there's a crisis element to the train station because it doesn't have a payphone. And it assumes that you have an ability to have tickets available on a smartphone, and it's only staffed 4 hours a day. So having people do everything that they can to get to our train station to find it closed, I think is something that is causing some stress with individuals that are trying to find their next place to be or get to their families. And so I just wanted to put that in your minds as far as how we could improve that, because we do get a lot of people at Brownell looking for we don't have a payphone. There are no payphones in Essex Junction. And often ticket printing. So Brownell is kind of a hub for the Amtrak station as far as the support that we can offer. And we do, but I think it would be great. Like the person, George, that I was speaking to last week said that at other train stations, there's more digital signage and other things to just give people information. And I did take a walk around the train station, and you have to walk around the whole building to find the closed office with that hours, and that's about the extent. So as we look at upgrading the train station and what we can do as a city, it would be great to have more resources so people know what if they get off the train there or getting the train, what resources that they have access to, and not, we tend to have people showing up, not frequently, but every few weeks, that are kind of stressed out because they wanted to take the train and the train station's closed to them when they get
You're
there.
able to help them, sounds like, with the computer.
Yeah,
And everything.
yes, we do help them. But I didn't realize the impact on outreach that this had. So I thought that was very helpful information for them to share for sure, because we just do that as part of our day to day, but it is something that I think we as a city could be better as far as if we're going to be a transportation hub, giving people information that they can access would be great.
Yeah, we can pass that along to Amtrak and ask them to provide their customers with the information their customers should have too.
Yeah, and having a payphone, I've talked to Burlington Telecom. There's no real solutions for payphones, but that is something that I think it should be on a bucket list because everybody needs our phones at Brownell, and we give them the phones at our desks for brief phone calls, and it's my staff has to witness a lot of things that they might not want to know when people use these phones. So,
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Just writing down. Okay. Sorry to cut you off earlier, Wendy. I should have asked you if you had anything else to add. Sorry about that. Jean, would you mind coming up to the table so that it's people at home can hear?
Just real quick, couple of other things that the services, one,
Can you just say your name and?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Jean Grant, and I'm on the trustee board at the library. Just a couple things that you didn't mention that I'm super proud of. We have a seed swap at the library. And I was able to reach out to a number of places, like Clausen's gave me a box this big of seeds that people can take with them. And Gardner Supply also donated some, and we got some individual people just donating seeds. So that I think can be super useful to new Americans. You can take some, you can leave some, and that will be going on all summer. And there's also the, I don't think you mentioned the museum passes that people can get.
I did not.
Yeah, so that's all.
Awesome, thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to add anything in the room? I'm not seeing any hands online. Just give it a second. All right. Virginia, do you have anything you wanted to add to this? No? Okay, great. Wendy, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Glad the hybrid option worked for you.
All right. Good to see you all. Have a good night.
You too.
Thank you.
See ya. Thanks. All right. Going back up. 5B, update from the Tree Advisory Council and Nick Meyer. If you come up to the...
Warren Spinner to join us,
Oh, great. Sure.
our tree warden and member of the committee.
There's another. Yeah, me too.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be able to come and speak to you. A bit
Thanks.
about the tree committee and the work that we've been doing. I think in your packet, did you get the summary
Yes.
that I'd sent?
Yep.
And I'm sure that you've all read it and have lots of questions for me. But I thought I'd just open it up and just read something that was here. And from there, I can talk about some highlights of the year and then leave it to you to ask questions.
great.
So why trees in Essex Junction? Street trees, the trees in your yard, and the trees in our parks comprise the city's urban forest and contribute to our city's livability and beauty. The benefits of trees are numerous. Trees control erosion, lessen stormwater runoff, dampen wind and sound, help cool our homes and buildings, provide food and shelter for wildlife, convert carbon dioxide into oxygen, and add immeasurable beauty to our environment. And in this day of climate change, they're one of the tools in fighting that change. So, the many benefits of trees. We had a pretty busy year in 23, as you read. We planted about 37 trees, which brings our total up to over 250 since the tree committee was formed. Branch Out Burlington, this marks our fourth year of growing all the trees for the city. And that's, we're really fortunate to have that relationship with them. And it allows us to buy young trees, grow them for 2 or 3 years, and then plant them on the streets, saving the city a great deal of money. and being able to partner with an organization like Branch Out Burlington. It's been a terrific relationship. We had a celebration of Arbor Day. One of our goals is to work with the youth in the community and to get them involved in and educate them a bit on trees and what they mean to the community, and to try and teach them to become the young tree stewards of the future. And every year we will go to a different school and have an event. This was the 8th year that we became a Tree City USA community, which means it's a commitment by the city to invest a dollar amount, as well as having Arbor Day events and other things that shows that we are really committed as a community to be warranted a Tree City USA. And during that time, when we do the application, we have to compile what the volunteer hours have been for our committee. And we think we're up to probably over 300 volunteer hours during the course of the year. And I think it shows that what a working volunteer committee can do in a community. And we've got a great group working together. We've been collaborating with the Planning Commission more this year after the new Land Development Code was written, and advising them on various projects in the downtown area and other places as well. And I think this is evolving into a good relationship that we can provide some expertise to them. Let's see, we had a tree walk, historic walk in June. It was well attended. It was a great event. We had probably 28 people that came, bringing our local historian back in, and Warren Spinner. We had an awesome tree contest. Again, trying to engage the community, get them to participate, and seeking out their favorite trees. And these are all things that we hope to continue in years to come. So that's sort of a highlight of what we have done this year. And I think that I was actually having attended a number of the forums at the strategic planning to see how community members, sometimes we think we're acting in a vacuum of the work that we do, but that seen on the visioning statements of what were priorities, how many individuals were citing green streetscapes, the importance of it in their community. So that was great to see. We've had a great relationship with Public Works. You know, we work hand in hand with them. We're able to do a lot of the communication for them to community members. There'll be a phone call that comes in, and Rick will generally refer it right to us. And we will either go out and see the situation or talk to them about it. So I think that's all I've got. And I thought maybe Warren could speak a little bit about something that's developed this year with the grant that we received and our emerald ash borer issue.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
Thank you, Nick. That was well done. And we got a lot going on, as you just heard, and we had a new scenario arise in late December this year, where we had discovered emerald ash borer had actually found its way into Essex Junction. Sad to say, we were anticipating it. We brought a plan forth to then the trustees, which was approved in 2018. And we have been preparing citizens for this moment, if you will, and now that it's here, they're more in tune to what's going on, which is great. So we found it in late December, had it confirmed by a forest pest technician from Forest Parks and Recreation, state of Vermont. And so then we had to break the news to Regina about this, and then, okay, how are we going to manage? What are we going to do? It's been really good because we've put some PSAs together, put it out on the website, put it out on our webpage, put it out to Front Porch Forum. So we've gotten the word out, and because of the work that we've done prior, starting in probably 2019, we've been knocking on doors and letting people know it was coming, asking if we could interplant trees and then start to remove some of the ash trees. So by this spring, we will have removed by a contractor or with Public Works help almost 60 ash trees in the city. So we're getting there. People are aware of it, and in the area where most of these trees are, they were planted on both sides of the streets. As most of you know, some are on private property, and we have received messages from folks about what to do. So we have answers for them, which is great. So we also got a grant, which you have seen and approved, and we appreciate that. And it's been initiated, and we're working with that. And that was from the state Forest Parks and Recreation. And we have 2 years to finish that grant out. Part of it, the big part of that grant will be planting 18 large trees in the area where we're removing the trees. So that it's a work in progress, and so far so good. And kudos to the Public Works Department because they have been removing ash trees for us over the last few weeks. And for the most part, it's going very well. So glad to report that to you.
How many, you've taken 60, how many ash trees do we have remaining?
Over 100.
Okay.
Our population for public trees in the city is around 1,000, give or take. And about, unfortunately, 16% of that were ash trees.
Yeah.
And very isolated into the southwest portion down off West Street and Hayden, Wilkinson, Tyler, and Lavoie area. So that's the area that we're working hardest in. We've got a few on Main Street here. We've got a few on Pearl Street. We have actually that row of trees as you go down to Susie Wilson Road. 50% of those, or probably 60% of those, are ash. They'll all be coming out eventually. So I didn't think it would be here this quick, but on a state level with EAB, it's in over 65 communities now in the state of Vermont. So.
And when you're all planting trees, it sounds like you're planting you're really mixing it up.
We are
Right.
diversifying,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah. So we've got a good mix. And the nice thing about working with Branch Out Burlington, as Nick mentioned, is we can choose the trees that we bring in to plant in the nursery and grow them up to bring in. So that diversity, that's how it's happening there as well. So it's been going well.
I was thinking about this, knowing this was coming up today as I was walking the dog the other day. How does a neighborhood or a resident request trees for their neighborhood? And the part B to that is, especially a neighborhood that doesn't have sidewalks, for instance. So it's inherently or more obviously private as opposed to yard, sidewalk, green space, road, that kind of thing, right? So how does that, is there a way that?
Yes, if a resident should call and ask about wanting a tree, we have a system in place.
Oh.
We have an easement agreement, which was adopted by the village quite a while ago and is still in play, where we would work with a homeowner, figure out, let them know what we had for trees. Then we would come in and plant the tree for them on their property, They could, you know, in the front yard, so it has to be visible from the street.
Sure, yeah.
And then we would maintain it for a year, and then it becomes their tree. So we would obviously work with them on how do you maintain it? What needs does it need to survive? You know, watering being the most important to start with a new tree. So there is a mechanism there to do that, yes.
We have in the past, we've looked at the main corridors coming into the five corners and kind of branched out from there. And so that has been sort of our focus initially.
Yeah.
And we're now getting to a point that we will start moving into more residential areas. And there we'll be knocking on doors and an opportunity where there aren't sidewalks. That lends itself a little bit better for a street tree.
Yeah.
More soil volume,
Yep.
basically.
Yeah.
It's much better for the tree.
What's the impact on our public park space? Because you mentioned a number of streets, but I'm thinking about Stevens Park very specifically because you're talking about that particular area, and that's really about the woods. But I'm wondering if it's also impacting any of our other specific parks and green space.
The impacted from Emerald Ash Borer?
Yeah.
Okay. As far as the native areas in Essex Junction, the only place that I found native ash growing any number at all is down behind Cascade Park. There's really not a lot of naturally growing ash trees in Essex Junction.
Yeah.
That's why I was thinking, oh, even where we've got them, where they were planted, they would be isolated. But the big means to move that insect around is firewood. So I believe if you driving down through the neighborhood and you look, there's a lot of people burning wood, and I'm assuming that that's how it came in.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
I just wanted to say, first of all, I really want to commend both of you and the members of your committee. You are one of the most effective but quietest committees we have in Essex Junction, but your work is really important and it's noticed. So I just really want to thank you for that. And I love the tree contest, and I really hope you do it again. That's so much fun.
That's slated for this
Yeah.
fall again.
Great.
Appreciate the comment.
Yes.
I walk on Cushing Drive all the time, and the ash trees are dropping branches by the armload. And I don't know, is that an effect of the ash borer, or are they dealing with another issue? But every one of those trees seems to be losing significant amount of branches at the moment.
Cushing.
It's down below, isn't it?
It's you,
Below?
Cushing's the one that's off of Lavoie.
Lavoie, exactly.
Those are little leaf lindens.
Those are lindens.
Yes.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So you don't have to worry about emerald ash borer on there.
That's great.
For one, but
But they
There are
appear to
other
be,
issues with those.
they
but there's
seem to be a
something worse.
mess. Yeah, really bad.
so the ones that are in the public right of way on Cushing, we're going to start pruning those pretty soon.
Huh, okay.
Because the neighborhood is called and wants them lifted, basically.
Oh, good.
So that they're up a little bit, you know, and they're not in front yards, and they're not, you know, the people that maintain got a mow under them, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, but they did plant, like on the side that's ours, there's 20 of them,
Yeah.
all the same kind of tree. So anyway,
No one seemed to have seen the memo about Dutch elm disease. That when they
way
approved
back
these
when,
projects.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you're not consulted as much as you'd like to be.
They are now.
They are.
Yeah.
No, that's pretty much what I had. Just
Okay.
really,
One
go
more
for it. Yeah.
question. So if a resident has ash trees on their property and they're looking like they think they have EAB, or they want to be proactive about it, so they call the city and they ask for, like, who can help me with this? And then you come out, inspect the tree, and then give them a suggested plan. Like, do they cover the cost of removing the trees and all that kind of thing?
If it's on private property,
Okay.
we would be like technical advisors to them.
Got it.
and would, yeah, I wouldn't mind going out and checking. Just because I'm curious now that I know it's there, and I know there's private trees on Hayden Street right now that are infected. And, you know, they're in decline, and I would think the homeowners would know that, but it's gonna spread.
Yeah.
So the larva will hatch in early June, and then they'll go out and feed you. They're hardly noticeable feeding on the leaves. But then when it's time to lay the eggs on the trees, boom, they go in, and then the whole process starts, and it just keeps going.
Yeah.
Is there state money to help homeowners remove these? Because the tree removal is not
Very
cheap.
expensive. Yeah.
There, in this particular grant, there is not, they don't provide money to remove trees on private property. However, there is room in the grant to allow planting on private property. However, I mean, that's in the future. Should we, if that money continues to become available, and the money that they're getting is coming from the federal government. And if we should get another grant next year, I mean, these options are gonna be open. Because if that whole area gets devastated, you're talking, you know, like I said, there's still over 100 trees down there to come down. And that's private and public. So if you say, well, okay, like there's 60, 70 trees all coming out of homeowners' front yards. You know, I mean, some people that we've talked to would like a tree back, and some would prefer not. So we work with them.
And some have been proactive already on their own trees and removed them and planted on a few occasions. But I think they're seeing a lot more activity in terms of public works and what we're doing that, and the PR that we've tried to do.
Anyone else?
Just a general question, again, in order to continue to support, because I agree with what Elaine said, but to continue to support your committee, is there anything else that you would ask from us, or whether it's in connection with us, communication with us? Is there anything else that we can do to help support your efforts?
Some more youth volunteers.
The feeling. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, just having your support as city councilors and from city staff helps, because, I mean, there will become, you know, we're going to need financing down the road as well, but we're trying to keep those costs to a minimum by getting grants, by Branch Out Burlington allow us to grow trees up there. We get them a lot less expensive, you know, but you never know what's going to happen. So yeah, your support, knowing that we can come to you and say, you know, what our scenario is, what our needs are. You know, you've been great so far at listening and understanding, and we do appreciate that.
Yeah.
I was gonna say. Oh, bummer. I got distracted by something that just happened, so I apologize for that. I lost my train of thought, but we really appreciate the. Oh, I know what it was. I'm thrilled to hear about the. Thrilled to hear about the coordination with the Planning Commission.
Yes.
I was on Bike Walk for quite a while, and was often frustrated at lack of coordination between. You know, like we often felt would be great to be consulted on some of these projects that were being proposed, and we would take it upon ourselves to look and then try to provide the feedback. So
Yeah.
I'm really glad it's working out, that the coordination is happening with the Planning Commission.
Well, it's great for us because
Yeah.
we're, between the two of us, we're able to comment on most any one of the I'll say the bigger projects.
So are you also with DRB or?
I was gonna say, it probably is the DRB.
It is.
Yeah, I said it out loud.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait,
Yes.
it's got to be DRB.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we have a DRB. Yay.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's with them and on the projects.
It's challenging, definitely, in the Five Corners area, just because of the lack of real estate and the footprints of the buildings. But we are trying to push for what the community has asked for, that to incorporate some green infrastructure. Yeah.
As much as possible.
Yeah.
Just reminded me that that sandwich would have been really good in a green space. No, sorry.
You and the sandwich.
Just kidding.
Well, thank you both very
Sure.
much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Really
Thanks
appreciate
for
it.
having us in. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the work.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Um,
Right. Okay.
Sorry. All right, so, sorry about that. 5C, 2 Lincoln remodel update and discussion. Harlan, please join us.
Evening.
You already started on the wrong page. I had it all set up.
Are you on 3-1 or 3-0? Or did you go to 4?
I went to the overview one. Go down a little bit more. Okay, I think that's floor 1. As best as I can see. It's nice if you have this screen over here to look at.
So, I'm sure as you read through the memo that we originally started out with our original scope for the building and to address a lot of needs. And then after going through the first estimate and taking a look at the cost of what the project was going to be, we adjusted the scope a little bit and discovered some needs that also needed to be added to the scope, and we went out for an estimation for a second round, and that estimation has come back to us, and we are still looking at possible changes in the scope in order to reach the original target that we were tasked with to stay within budget. And then in the packet, we've given you a lot of the comparisons, and we wanted to bring it to your attention, and we are looking for your input as we start to look at some of the recommendations in order to reduce the project to try to fit within the target that we have put out to the architectural and engineering team and the build team. So I don't know if you would like me to describe any more detail, or if you had a chance to look through the material that we've provided and start asking some questions and maybe providing us some input.
I could give you, since I'm closest, just a real quick little overview, just so you, to remind everybody where we're at with the design itself. So we are looking at
First
the first floor.
Yep.
We are right here in the conference room right now. So this is the main door that you access from the back parking lot here. So a component is building a new vestibule on the outside of this entryway so that this becomes a much nicer entryway. It also, much like we're trying to solve in the library, the snow falling off the roof problem, there's snow falling off the roof right here, so this helps with that. You come into the lobby, and essentially this is a much more open space, and you've got a counter that you can talk with the clerk right here, and a counter that you can talk with the assistant zoning administrator right here. This hallway opens back up, and essentially on this side, you've got assistant clerk, city clerk, conference room area, space for the title searches that where the vault is right here. Then down on this side, you kind of keep with the community development team, a zoning administrator, city planner, community development director, manager is in the back where I used to be over there. Admin assistant here. So what kind of really changes here is the stairwell goes to the back corner. And that goes all the way down to the basement and all the way up to the second floor. if you come this way towards the conference room, what's happening is we're putting an elevator right across from the existing staircase. Bathroom here. This becomes the hallway into the senior space here with another bathroom there. And then this becomes another sort of open space that could be used for a variety of things.
More than likely storage.
Yeah.
Oh,
For some of the tables and chairs and programs as we continue to move through the multi-purpose spaces.
gotcha.
And this, as I see it on the screen, is the 2.9, part of the second estimate. Total project, 2.9 mil.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah.
These are the 50% construction drawings that we're looking at.
right, right.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that I was clear on that, since below that, it starts to acknowledge things like taking out the vestibule. And
Correct.
so I just want to make sure that
Yes.
I'm looking at this. correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the second floor. So main staircase here, and the new staircase in the back corner here. So down this corridor now, that traditionally was the teen center space. We now, at this very day, we have 3 city offices up here in this space right now. That's where the finance team is. And then the teen center is in the back here. And then the teen center is in the front, and the big room over there that we're not touching in this process. So the changes again that you see, the elevator comes up here next to the staircase. There are 2 bathrooms here. The kitchen area, which is right now in the bigger space in the teen center, comes forward onto this side. A stove is added in this space. The doorway between the old building and the new, well, the 2 different parts of the building really moves over here, because if anybody's been up there right now, if you try to walk from here to there, you walk right smack into a pole. So that's what's going on there. This kind of gets cleaned up in terms of what's going on in there. So this becomes a usable space. This becomes a usable space for the teen center. Teen center offices here. Then you come to a door, and then these are other city office spaces up here, a bathroom, and a staff break room.
So there is segregation between staff, our staff,
And teen center.
and the
yes.
teen center, more public area access.
Yeah.
Presumably swipe card, kind of locked areas that, okay.
And just again, so I understand, so there's 3 teen center offices and then 1 community, and then 1 larger space for the teen center,
Yes.
along with the activity space.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, and then the rest of them, so finance is being moved to that back staircase. Okay,
Yep.
gotcha.
Finance is that large lower area there. To the left of that is the employee break room, right there. Communications is the office next to that.
It's,
And then there's a small conference room just off from the stairway. And then we have those 3 additional offices on the back wall. One of those is HR, already designated HR. And then I believe the other 2 will be filled with some of the other positions, depending how the city tends to move forward.
sorry. Okay.
So yeah, that's essentially the overview. There are some other things going on in the basement, including already starting on this right now, actually trying to move all the server equipment into one particular space that's in a better space that can better access everything.
Oh, this foreskin is so crunchy. Oh, God.
Jews did 9/11. Jews suck baby penis.
Fred, Luker, Moshe, Ursula, if we could get them out of the meeting. There's 3 of them. Once again, we apologize for the vile and inappropriate comments.
Okay, so.
Thank you. Just set
hold
a
on
waiting
second
room.
here.
Had him pegged.
Amber, could you let us know if you can hear us?
In the corner of the big screen up there, it looks like we are muted and, yep, there.
Oh, see, yep, sorry, one second. I have to just remember how I do this after I pause the meeting. I'm gonna make you co-host. Amber, can you hear us now? Amber, or anybody out there actually, can you hear us?
I'm waiting for actually communicating with Amber. She can hear us.
She can.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Asked her to message if she wants to speak.
Okay.
So those were the floor plans.
Yes.
Did you want to go into, I'll just do a quick rundown of first scope, what we removed, second scope, and what the recommendations are?
Yeah, that sounds
Okay.
great.
So the first scope of the project was to upgrade the building to three-phase power, relocate the generator, add the elevator, address lobby and services to the residents, address public bathrooms and meeting spaces, address office space layout, security, workflow, and efficiency, HVA systems to provide air exchange, which the building does not have at the moment. We look to put the HVAC system to the roof at that point to maintain the storage space that we have down in the basement. And then we were trying to accommodate the teen center needs as we were going to need to take over some of their space as we move forward. When they came back with the first estimate, we were outside of our target financially, and they did some value engineering, which is they came back to us and said that you can do things differently and that we recommend that you remove some of these items, which then brought us to our second scope. We removed a lot of those items. Still didn't get us into our target range, but got us very close, and then we were going to try to get into our target range with our scope. So the second scope, we took the HVAC units off from the roof and put them into the basement. We left the power as single phase instead of changing it over. We changed some aspects to the lobby. We reduced the vestibule, which was originally 3 bays, created a nice little meeting space out there. We changed that back down to 1. We added a sewer line lining, which we've discovered that 2 Lincoln needs to have, and address the teen center types of flooring, and address some door replacements that the architect had in the first scope, drawn into the first scope, to try to reduce the costs even more. And then we've gotten our second estimate back, and that's where we're at. And we provided that document of the items that we pulled out. And then now the value engineering or the second estimate of 321.24 as you go down through there. And then they have come back with some value engineering. Now, in the process of them doing their estimate, we gave them a scope because at that point we knew what our out-of-pocket costs were going to be. And we gave them a scope within a $200,000 range. And in the process of them estimating it, they left some things. They knew that we were already outside of that range. So there were a few items that they didn't put in. So that's why you'll see that in the estimate, zone 3 heating system for the teen center or the HVAC system for the teen center wasn't even in the final estimate because they knew they were already outside of our target.
So, okay, sorry, keep going.
So that's where we're sitting, and this is where we would like your input or comments or direction or.
Can I just say one more thing?
Oh,
Sorry.
please, yes.
So, yeah, where we're at today, which you can see from the cost estimate, we're about $350,000 off. We are in a scenario where we're just at 50% construction drawings and it's all estimates. Nothing's gone out to bid to get any real actual dollar amounts. What we felt like when we started to see the second round of reductions from the construction manager is we are just like nickeling and diming these things and trying to pull out some stuff that starts to really, I mean, we're already in the first stage. We took out some things that feel like we don't want to take those out. And now we're like sort of struggling with that a little bit. So basically, we're moving forward without taking that second round of stuff out because it's just a little too piddly. And we just really want to see what the actual cost estimate is once we go out to bid. What we'd love to know from you folks is if there's anything that is already kind of removed in that first bucket that gives you like really struggle with that and you want us to include it back in the project, just knowing that we are going to have to figure out where that money comes from. And there aren't really a lot of great sources. So just love to hear the feedback in terms of whether you do want us to just continue to try to cut or we'll go out to bid, we'll see where it's at. And some of these things like the vestibule can be put in as an alternate. So we kind of get what that cost amount is and we can bring it in if we can afford it and the rest of the dollars come in under.
So just so I'm clear, and once again, I've already talked about this once today, but I just want to make sure I'm clear. We are looking at the first in this chart on packet page 8. We're looking at the first section stuff. That's what you're asking us, right? But it looks like in the second estimate includes removing the vestibule period.
Correct. That's one of the recommendations of the value engineering right now is to remove the vestibule as a total. And only re-pour the sidewalk that is currently out there.
Yeah.
The doorway would get replaced. But the vestibule itself would not be there.
I guess that, as we start to talk about this, I think I always assumed this would be an evolving process, and we were starting with the ARPA money we had and some incredibly rough estimates on how much a renovation would be. And, in my head at least, understanding that this was going to have to evolve in the real world in terms of how much everything was going to cost. I'd sort of like us to take the approach that we're trying to do this in a way that we don't have to return and do it again. That, we might need to be open and to trying to figure out how to find some more money so that we don't have to make this level of compromise on a renovation for this building. So I just wanted to kind of start there, that hopefully this is more than we thought it would be, but I think we need to be open to some of this still needs to be done. So we're not returning with the troubled entrance, for instance. We're sort of having that conversation with the Brunel Library entrance right now, right? So it seems odd that we would knowingly leave that off if it were at all possible to do it. I mean, I'll start. I just think way up at the top in the early stages, I was a proponent of having public restrooms. I don't know. That just seems completely out of the question at this point. But I still think it's important. I've heard from business owners downtown that think it's very important because right now they are the public restrooms. So that's something I still think is pretty important. Any of the items that reduce our efficiency long-term from a utility point of view, I think personally are a priority, making sure we're not shooting ourselves in the foot in that regard. So, the shifting around of the age, I don't know anything about this stuff, right? So, just saying that out loud. But I don't know how much of a compromise it is, except for space, to put it in the basement, or to not, to stick with natural gas versus trying to do some heat pump work. Over the next 20 years, are we going to save enough going the more expensive route now? Do you know what I mean? Or are we going to pay more over the life of this period? And just having that information might be, you don't have to come back to us with it, but I mean, just that's kind of where I'm thinking. And I'm also curious, it's hard to tell from this list how much extra cost having the space available for the teen center is adding to this. So trying to figure out what that component is as we look forward to continuing to host that.
Yeah.
And what is that taking away from the overall project and what we're able to do? For me, that's a consideration. And it looks like it's been recommended, you said the sewer line needs lining, and it looks like it was recommended that could come out. But I know we're doing that work around the city, so I'm assuming that
Yeah, so
I mean, I don't know if that can be done from the, from the capital budget for that program. The other thing, like looking at this list, they've removed restoration and repair for windows. I don't know if that's something that would already have to be done for the building if it wasn't being renovated anyway, like down the line as a capital expense.
That gets into the efficiency pieces that you were talking about. So obviously, as you're in construction and you're ripping off some trim work and so on and so forth, and you're right there, that's the time to really try to seal some things up. I think most of you may be aware that 2 Lincoln went through a energy audit today, and we will get that report back in a couple of months through the municipal energy resilience program that the state has put forward. And we are going to try everything that we can to incorporate all that information. The timings of those two, our progress and the state program, we think that it will be some good information for us to utilize. We're just not sure where it's going to fall on our schedule, right, and how much of it we can really jump on and implement. But we are definitely going to try. It's part of our plan.
And then I guess, what to do with the stuff at the very bottom of the chart that's important but not really included, which is about $100,000, which is
which are some wish list items that were relayed to us early on in the project.
Those are my thoughts right now, and then we can go around the room. I'm sure some conversation might trigger more. Anybody else want to chime in?
I just think once this goes out to bid for a preliminary estimate, it's going to be higher, and then there's going to be more to cut out. So.
Yeah.
See, and we're hopeful that the market is really weird. We are never going back to pre-COVID. We are no longer in COVID, but there was a time where as we were coming out of COVID and some of the prices changed a little bit, labor was a big issue. We are seeing in some of the trades where it looks like they've been able to get their labor and there is more competition. And in a couple of areas, there has been some areas seen, and that's why we've decided to go full forward into guaranteed maximum price. Because until we know that, right, that's what that is if we can get to that point and they were like, this construction project is not going to cost you any more. Right now, it's estimates, we're plus or minus 20%, plus or minus 10%. Until we get to that guaranteed maximum price, we really don't know what our true costs are. And that's why we haven't changed anything, as even though they've done the value engineer and made some recommendations, we've asked our team to get us to 100% construction drawings with the scope remaining the same so that we can get to that guaranteed maximum price, which should be our true cost. But I agree with you. We feel that the numbers aren't going to change a lot, that we're still in probably that 2.9 area.
My next question is, where does that money, where does the gap come from? We struggled with the budget process
Yep.
to reduce it by a mere 0.4%. So I'm really not sure where the money's going to come from to cover that gap.
There is only one place. Lot.
Yeah, the
yeah.
one place, if we are successful at getting the library grant, right now in that building maintenance fund, 300,000 is for that library roof and project. We, in that grant application, we committed 100,000 of that still to that project in hopes that we can make ourselves more competitive. Because like Wendy was saying, we don't hit some of those targets. We're not low income. And so it's might be tricky for us to get that, but so that would be, I forget the exact numbers, but 200,000-ish that we would be able to use for this project. So that's an opportunity, like Harlan was just saying, the other energy municipal grants that are coming from the state, they're just like lagging, they're really taking a long time with that program. It will come with the same stipulations that we are not in the low income category. And so it may also be difficult to get those funds. But, you know, some of these things, like if we were to go to heat pumps, it's probably not a complete redesign. We just are able to fit that equipment in if we can get that state funding program to actually help us do that. So some of these things are workable. Some of those things on that bottom list that you're talking about, those don't get done right away. Those don't get done right away. We sort of figure them out down the road.
Right.
So those are the kinds of things that feel like it makes sense to sort of move forward, get that 100% estimate, and then we can kind of tweak a little bit as we go. And then lot fund really would be the only other
Right. I think that's the only bucket that's left.
place. Yeah.
Andrew?
I was just gonna say that outside of local option tax, there isn't another source that exists to tap into.
Yeah.
In terms of what is a priority or is not a priority, in all honesty, I would look to those of you who spend the most amount of time in here as to what you all need to be able to do your jobs most efficiently and effectively. Because frankly, from my perspective here, that doesn't really impact us all that much. And so what you all need to do your job should be more important. If there are opportunities to get estimates on some of these, where they are optional estimates, so that we don't necessarily need to commit to that, that sounds great. The only other thing that this says to me as well is a need for next year to rush the conversation on our future building needs, and in particular the fire department, public works, have the community conversation about going out for a bond sooner rather than later, and having a small portion of that as a part of this project as well.
Yeah. We gotta move that up.
I would like to say that I think the things that are not included are things that I would say really like to have included. I don't want to see them omitted. I mean, I think for our commitment to community engagement and the need for safety and security, I think we need those particular items. I'm a little concerned about taking the vestibule off the list because of, you know, what I've heard from the need and again, safety in that particular corner. And this is me kind of, you know, having looked this over and thinking, here we are, nickel and diming. But like the car charging station, is that an opportunity for revenue into the city? Or is that, it was the intention of having a car charging station on site just there for free public use or employee use?
That's the revenue generator.
They're not free. I don't know if we get anything from it, but
Doesn't the state have grant programs for EV chargers?
Yeah, so that's what we were thinking too with that is at the very least because they're going to be sort of opening things up and redoing some of the electric on the back end of the building, just put the conduit in for now while they're doing that. And then see, that's definitely a thing that the state's got grant funding for right now that we could do that. I don't know that we've thought far enough in advance in terms of operationally how that works. And if we could put a little surcharge on it.
Yeah, that would be my question. I mean, again, I agree with you. I don't think it necessarily needs to be a priority for this moment. I like the idea of having it ready to go in case we decide to go that direction, but it would be a question line as to whether or not it would be an opportunity for revenue generation by having a charging station here.
I was actually, I was a little caught off guard that the charging station was even into the plan, because it wasn't something that we had put into the original scope.
Yeah.
And I believe what was explained to me is that there is a new law or public parking lots, if you are remodeling or rechanging your public parking lot, there's some sort of a requirement. And I believe that's why the architects had one placed into the scope, because there was some look at doing a lot of work to our parking lot, especially with a new vestibule. Almost 1/3 of that parking lot gets regraded a little bit and changed. And there may be a requirement that we have to have one. There has been a discussion of at least putting the infrastructure conduit in the general area of where it would go and get hooked up. So if it is something that is added later, it would be an easy add. The infrastructure to drop it in place would be there. So we're trying to be as creative as we can to make sure that if we do have to back a lot of this stuff out, we're trying to make sure that it's stuff that we don't have to rip up a bunch of new stuff that we just did to do it.
of course. Let me check Amber.
She can raise her hand.
Okay.
So, and also when you're ready for it, anybody at home can raise their hand and I can unmute them.
Okay. Chat is disabled. Anyone else? How does that sound, Regina and Harlan?
So I believe what you have just asked us to do is to continue with the scope like we have continued to the 100%, get to the guaranteed maximum price. Was there some thought that we wanted to review some of the items that we had already removed out of the scope as alternates out of the first area?
And just to be very clear, the items under first estimate 11/16/2023, is that what you're referring to?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
We were, I believe, window resto and repair. You wanted us to look at that if possible.
It just seems that's a big amount. So I understand why it's on the list.
Yep.
But
and then
I think that's more of a question for the board. You know, I think once we start hitting anything over the $5,000 or $10,000 level, we have to have a conversation about whether we're going to actually find funding.
Right.
I think that's the reality. So,
okay.
You know, once we start saying we insist on the vestibule and we want the resto done, we're really talking about, we're willing to talk about finding funding from the local option tax fund or something. So
And
just
one
to
of
be
the-
perfectly transparent, I think it sounds like that's what we're saying, right?
Right.
So, I guess I'd put it back to the group and say, how strong do we feel about any of those items in there?
Can I give a little bit of feedback to that before
Yeah.
you have that conversation? So
Please.
those items we can go back to the team, and those can be alternate ads in the
Okay.
bidding process.
All right.
So we could say the bid would be replace the mechanical heating system to natural gas. And an alternate ad would be to use the type of equipment that would incorporate a heat pump with inside of it. So we would you would get your heating system for this cost if you add the heat pump system to it. So we can do those things. So again, with a window restoration as well, that could potentially be an ad that we ask our team to put into the bidding process that says there's 37 windows and doors or whatever the case may be. And we want to make sure that the rough opening area of those windows are being sealed and airtight. So we can add those as ads.
Okay.
So if those are two items that you're concerned with, we will look at how to do an alternate ad bid, where then we can go and come back to you and say, this is a guaranteed maximum price. If we add these items, these are going to be the additional cost over and above that.
Do you think those two particular items are worth worrying about? Or worth doing that,
that
process for?
I was pleasantly pleased with some of the information that I got out of the energy audit without actually getting the report back. I think we're aware that most of the windows have been replaced.
Okay.
So the windows themselves are doing pretty well, but the rough opening in behind some of the trim work around those windows is not holding up that well, or did not stand up all that well. But the building overall, in a lot of the areas that work has already been done, actually turned out, it was a bit of a surprise that it was good. There were a lot of things that I think we knew that were not a surprise, that will be addressed at some point. But I think it's worth having it out there as an additional ad potentially. Over the long term, it's a money saver, right? If we're not pushing heat outside in the middle of winter, then our gas prices we're not spending as much trying to heat the building. So
Yes, sure.
What are we losing, Harlan, by going from a three-phase power to a single phase?
So this is where I get technical because it's only how I understand it, or how to describe it. And I think everybody knows that within electricity that there is what's referred to as amperage, which is heat, resistance, and the more resistance that you have, the more power you're burning. Going to a three-phase system, instead of everything drawing off from one or two lines, some of your heavier equipment can draw off from 3 individual lines of power coming in. It runs cooler, runs with less amperage, draws less power over the life of the unit. So that would be your elevator, your HVAC components, those types of, and then distributing the load throughout 3 legs of power coming in. We're probably going to have 3 or 4 200 amp electrical panels to wire the whole building. We're sitting at 3 right now. So then you've got those 3 different legs, and you can try to balance your loads so that you're not drawing power all from one leg and creating a lot of resistance and costing more money on the end. So there's an energy efficiency to it. It's not massive. It's not like heat pumps and solar panels, and but there is longevity in the equipment. So there's a balance there, but for the exuberant amount that we would have to pay to bring 3-phase in there because we run a generator system, it's payback to go to a 3-phase.
Right.
It's probably 50 to 100 years. So that's why I'm saying there's not a massive benefit to going to 3-phase.
So increasing the heavy mechanical, like adding the elevator,
Yep.
for example, that's not going to put an undue burden on the single phase.
No, they design it, so the motor is specifically designed to run off from a single phase. Yes, it's going to draw more power than a three-phase would, and it's gonna run a little bit slower. That's some of the trade-off that you get going to a single phase. In a building like this, you're never gonna notice it. In a 15-story building, you would notice it.
It'll go to the basement too, so
Oh,
it's
okay.
three
Yeah.
floors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the same thing with the heating system, you're not gonna notice any difference within the building. Longevity of the equipment, slightly. So there's, the three-phase power was not a hard one to walk away from.
Okay.
Sure.
Amber does have her.
Oh, excellent. No, that, okay.
Let me just get her unmuted.
Hey, guys.
Hello.
Hi,
Hi.
Amber.
Hi, Amber.
So my thoughts are, I kind of agree with a little bit of everything that everybody said. But I agree, if we can do some alternate ads and add-ons to the bid, just to get an idea as to what we might be potentially looking at before we decide totally to strip things out, that's great if we can do it. I also would add that when we're looking at like changing and removing things, that we should be focusing on our overall plans for the city, including the energy plan and the land development code. And I do think that there are a couple of those things that are tagged by some, the heat pumps, for example, and the car charging station. I know there's a current discussion going on at the planning commission level about car chargers. So I would just keep those things in mind. But I definitely trust that staff is looking at what they need long-term.
Does that make sense to everybody?
Yep.
We're good? Yeah. All right. So I think I should know this, but when would we hear on the next step after this? What's the next waypoint?
Full CDs, we are hoping by 4/23 or 4/26.
About a month.
Going out to bid. I think they were telling us that they thought that they could start getting a lot of that to go out to bid in May,
Yeah.
mid-May,
Hopefully,
and have the answers back shortly after that.
yeah, hopefully early June.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're more than likely going to have another meeting with the full team within a week, as we did receive some other information. Everything's rapid fire right now since we've moved into the direction that we have. And there's some clarification that I think we're gonna want. And we wanted to get this meeting and your input. And I think we'll probably have a full meeting with the team. And I believe Regina and I would be able to put better dates to give you that answer that for the question you just asked.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it. Thanks. Dottie. If there's anyone on Zoom right now that does want to make a comment, please raise your hand. We'll unmute you one at a time due to what happened earlier. So we'll hear from Dottie. Just please state your name again.
Dorothy Bergendahl.
Thank you.
First of all, I do not envy you. This is yeah. So it explains to me some of what is going on. I'm concerned as a person who uses the senior center because, among other things, Regina didn't even mention the senior center while she was pointing at the schematic. And the seniors are wondering what is going to physically happen to the senior center with this process. And I now know why we aren't being told, because you don't know. I'm here to ask for a little bit, for an attempt to get more information to the seniors. We've been told that we have to move out at the end of April. And is that really the case with what's going on with the estimates and the bids and the stuff? And yes, what changes are going to be made to the space when we come back? And that's the questions that I want you to consider having answered. There's going to be some kind of meeting next month with the rec department, but that assumes that everybody is going to come to one meeting. And I don't know whether that.
So I think we've communicated what was going to be done with the space and a time to move out. I don't think any of that has changed because of this, but I'll let Regina, if you want to
Well, are you
restate.
going to need to move into the space in May to use it as office space? That's what we were told.
So we have set out a schedule so that everybody could properly plan, because this is a lot of staging and moving. And so the city offices will move into that senior space during the renovation.
Yes.
And we also have a level of contaminant work that will happen before we even ready to start construction in this part of the building.
I requested that time to allow myself to be able to set up for the office, to be able to move into it. So I've requested that time, that timeline, and everything that the city is planning for that space is temporary. We'll go in, we'll set up our office spaces, all of that temporary stuff will come out. If recreation is speaking to something different, that would be up to them, but there are no plans here at this point to make any major changes other than potentially upgrades. I did hear that the kitchen may get upgraded, the kitchen area. It's not going away, but it may be upgraded. I did hear a rumor of that conversation going on, but as far as this plan that's going on, everything we do in there is going to be temporary. When this building is completed, the city's going to move back on.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
And we are working on figuring out where we host the senior activities in the renovation time. And so that's also in the works. We'll be coming to the council as soon as we've got that sorted out, and will be shared with the seniors as well.
Thank you.
Thanks. Is there anyone else online that has a comment on this? I am not seeing anyone. All right, so we'll come back to everybody here. So it sounds like we're good to go on this. Know what we're doing. Great. All right. So we'll move on to 5D, discussion and consideration of Green Mountain Transit funding support.
So on this agenda topic, we added this on Monday, so that's why you got the revised packet. So essentially, try to summarize. So GMT for the last couple of years has been working with a lot of the sort of ARPA and one-time funds that have been coming down to help manage their operations. They've also, like lots of folks, been experiencing a lot of increased costs. And what they are kind of coming up against is a issue in FY25, a real issue in FY26, if there isn't sort of a resolution to how to fill some funding gaps for them. Collectively, the state has been putting some thinking into how to fill the gaps in the transportation fund for a number of years, as we've seen the revenue source from the gasoline tax go down, and how do we kind of make up for that in other ways, and either through registration tax on electric vehicles or a mileage tax on electric vehicles. That said, there are a lot of needs in the transportation fund, not necessarily just the public transportation needs. And so there's just a couple of different things kind of going on here and challenges happening. GMT held a meeting on Monday afternoon for the legislators, as well as invited municipal folks just to get an understanding of what's going on. But really their ask at this point in time is to the state legislature to try to help them both in FY25, but also more long-term going forward. Burlington City Council has approved a resolution. The draft was in your packet. I understand Shelburne Select Board is working on a letter as well. So we thought we just wanted to bring it to you folks. If you want to write a letter to the to our reps and just express support of GMT's asks or whatever other points you want to make in the letter, then we can take your comments, get it into a letter, and Raj can sign it if that's what you would like to do.
So I think starting, I think the resolution Burlington had was a good starting point to pull some items out. I think GMT's talking points were excellent. I don't have that in front of me, so I can zoom, but I think, you know, my personal overall point would be this just goes with this sort of speaks to the focus we've had to make our community more welcoming to more housing and more residents. We are on one of the, if not the busiest route. And all of our planning and everything that the state is asking communities like ours to take on requires this investment. I would just say we'll continue to make those points in this letter and try to lobby as much as we can. I just don't understand. I understand it's complex, more complex than I know about right now, but this just feels frustrating when it almost feels like these things aren't thought through when, you know, things like S100 come down last year and they say, take on this, take on that, build higher, build more. We still can't figure out how to fund public transportation, but you know, you don't need parking. So I think it'd be a good exercise for us, a good effort. And if anybody has anything specific they want in there, let us know.
I would like to remind folks of the last time GMT considered changing Route 2, which is the second most popular route. It goes out to the town. They did a public hearing here in this room, and 30 or 40 people showed up and were very vocal about how much they need Route 2. And I remember at the time, I can't remember the name of the gentleman who was here, but he's high up in Green Mountain Transit, told us it was the most significant public feedback they'd had in a turn. They'd never had a turnout like that for a hearing. And I just think if they can, just being specific to the route that goes through our community, that we would have even more people. And that group and a similar group that came to the town select board, I went with them to Green Mountain Transit to a board meeting with a petition to ask them to keep Route 2 open, and they did. So I think the town of Essex has a serious, should have a serious role in this also. And I don't know if we want to partner with them on a letter to our entire delegation, the Essex delegation. I'd also recommend that, and they may be thinking about this at GMT, but we should be reaching out directly to the transportation committees in both the House and the Senate.
The chairs were at this meeting yesterday.
Okay.
Monday, sorry. Yeah, so they both were fully engaged and explained what they're thinking about from both of their committees. And again, the big challenge is the overall gap in funding in the transportation fund, in addition to the specific public transportation issue. But yeah.
I mean, I'm all for, in addition to creating this letter, creating a call to action that we can push out as a city on Front Porch Forum and all of our other channels. And give people quick information on how they can then do what happens, basically do what we get.
Yeah.
If you're concerned about this, contact
Here's
so-and-so.
who you write to.
Here's a link, here's some talking points. Here's what we've sent out. And
And our position on this
correct,
situation.
right. And I think, that route you're talking about is down to an hour between. It's almost useless. And we have so many people, dozens and dozens of people here that rely on the Essex Junction to Burlington route just to get to the hospital daily.
That's right.
And back to work. So, yeah. So I think if we can repurpose the letter to then be a call to action for the community, I think it'd be
we
great.
may be underestimating the number of residents that don't have cars.
Yeah.
That live close to the bus line on purpose.
And I'd be curious, I can do this on my own, but I'd be curious to reach out to Community Health Center, who we now host, and ask them if they have a bead on how many people use public transportation to get to them. Because if they're coming from outside of Essex Junction, they have to, and they don't want to walk from the railroad station, basically, they're switching the bus, and that is an hour wait. If they just get, it's an hour between those buses just to go up Main Street. So if they're ADA challenged and can't make that hoof from Railroad Street to Densmore, then they're waiting an hour. So yeah, maybe I'll do that. Anything else? Nothing specific. If you think of anything, just email one of us. And yeah, cool.
Appreciate you seeing this forward.
And we need a board member for GMT. Is anybody out in the community that would like to do that? Any of our current board members that would like to?
Sure.
They do like to send emails,
They do. There's a lot of.
even after you resign.
They're a good bunch.
What else is there?
Clayton's fantastic. All right. I don't.
Was the shore real?
We should prep him on when their meetings are and just double check. We'll connect.
Yeah, let's connect them.
Your people talk to.
Yeah, do that flip, Marcus.
Yeah, it's like it is.
Apparently it does.
It does.
All right.
It does. That's why Amber's not have video on right now. All right. There's no motion needed for this, right? So I think we can move on to.
So are you going to come back at the next meeting with this, or are you looking for us to authorize you to sign something?
There's a recommendation. Looking for you to authorize me to sign something. So it looks like there would be a motion.
I'll scroll back up.
Page 72.
I'll go ahead and move that the city council authorize the city council president to sign a letter on our behalf asking the Chittenden County state representatives and state senators to support the recommendations of the report on funding sources for public transit non-federal match into the transportation bill.
I'll second.
Great. Motion in a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes.
I'd also add that we might want to loop CCRPC into this communication. I think it's really important that they are part of it.
Great. I know we just did the motion. If there's anyone online, raise your hand. If you have any comments, there's nobody in the room, so we're just going to go straight to Zoom. We'll give that a second. If folks joining us tonight have any comments on that? I'm not seeing any raised hands, so we will move on to consent agenda. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Great. All those in favor say aye.
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 I'm going to assume Amber can't unmute, so.
I said aye.
Oh, okay, I didn't hear you before. Motion passes. Council member comments and manager report. Just go for it. Sure.
So just so folks know, on the day of the eclipse, the city offices and the library will be closing at noon on that day. So if you need to do any city business that day, please come in the morning. We also have eclipse classes here at the clerk's office as well as the library. So please keep coming in to get your glasses. some folks out in the community may be getting a letter from MSK Engineers. This is about the lead service line inventory, so please do pay attention to that. It's not a scammy kind of letter. It's definitely a letter we would love you to pay attention to. Really, this is an effort that Essex Junction is doing, as well as the rest of the municipalities in the state and also nationally, to try to identify if there are any lead service lines, so we can ultimately figure out how to get those removed.
And that is also a 12 or 14-inch tall door hanger that's laminated that says MSK, that looks like an ad, but it is actually real.
Yeah.
So
Great. And Harlan already mentioned this, but if you did drive by on Pearl Street today and saw 2 Lincoln, we had the big red thing in the front door. That was part of our blower door test to do an energy audit for this building. So it's probably a little shocking to see, but that's what, there wasn't any flood damage or anything going on in here. That's
strictly energy audit.
yeah. That's it for me.
great. I don't have anything right now, other than to say, once again, we are very sorry about the comments that were made earlier in the meeting. I can assure the community that we are spending an awful lot of time consulting with Vermont League of Cities and Towns, our attorney, Town Meeting TV, the Anti-Defamation League, to figure out what we are allowed to do and not allowed to do in terms of restricting people's ability to speak in a public meeting. It's complex, and we are actively working on this daily. So just sorry about tonight. We'll try to figure this out. And other than that, have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Great.
Thanks
Motion.
all.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.